Elvira had walked the sterile corridors of that hospital for more than 3 decades. She was known not just for her calm hands or precise diagnoses, but for the way she spoke to patients, as if each one was a story she wanted to hear, until the end. The white of her coat was already faded, just like the dreams she once carried in her youth. Still, she smiled, even when she felt invisible. Her retirement was just days away. A small party had been planned in the staff lounge. Coffee, a cake, maybe a few heartfelt words from younger nurses who still looked at her as a reference. But Elvira knew that after the farewell, her routine would no longer include beds, buzzers, or late-night emergencies. It would be silence, books, maybe a plant or two in the apartment she'd called home alone for the past 15 years. Renan had entered the hospital 2 weeks before, 24 years old. A body covered in tattoos and scars, and a criminal record that made the staff whisper. He'd been admitted after a stabbing during a street fight. Silent, aggressive, and seemingly unbothered by the world around him, he responded to care with grunts and icy stares. No visitors, no belongings, just a name written on a chart and an aura that made people steer clear. Elvira was assigned to him by chance, or perhaps it wasn't chance at all. She didn't fear him. She offered water without waiting for a thank you, adjusted his blankets without asking permission, and even brought a radio on one of the nights to softly play old jazz tunes while she monitored his vitals. He didn't say a word, but he didn't look away either. It was on a Tuesday evening, when the sky cracked with thunder and the hospital lights flickered nervously, that everything changed. Elvira entered the elevator on the 4th floor, a folder in her hands and tiredness in her steps. She pressed the button for the 1st floor, where the staff lockers were, ready to head home. The doors began to close, but just before they did, a hand shoved between them. It was Renan. He stepped in slowly, his left hand still bandaged, his right hand holding onto the railing. He didn't look at her. She didn't speak either. The elevator began its descent, then darkness. The lights died. The metal box jolted violently. The elevator stopped. A loud alarm blared somewhere in the distance, then silence, and just like that, the two of them were alone, trapped in the dark. This may look like an ordinary story, but trust me, it's anything but. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. Elvira instinctively reached for her phone, but it had no signal. She pressed the emergency button. No response. Renan leaned against the wall and exhaled sharply. "Of course," he muttered. Elvira turned toward his voice. "Are you okay?" He scoffed. "Like you care." She paused, then sat on the floor of the elevator, crossing her legs. "You're not the first angry soul I've met," she said softly, "and I'm guessing you fix all of them." He retorted. "No," she answered, "but I listen. Most people just want someone to see them, really see them." Silence again. But something shifted in that silence, barely noticeable, like the first crack in a frozen lake. 2 people, a generation, apart, worlds apart, but in that tight space with no way out, they were finally forced to stop running from others, from themselves. Chapter 1. Hearts in Silence. The silence inside the elevator wasn't empty. It was loaded, heavy with unsaid things, with judgment, with fear. Renan sat on the opposite side of Elvira, his back pressed to the cool metal wall, his eyes trained. On the floor, minutes passed, maybe hours. Neither had a watch. Neither wanted to admit they were anxious. Elvira broke the silence first, her voice calm, as if she were sitting in a garden rather than a steel box suspended mid-air. "You know, the first time I walked into a hospital, I fainted, right in front of the reception desk. The smell of antiseptic was too much for me." Renan raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I never thought I'd last 1 week, and now here I am, 3 days from retirement, trapped in an elevator with a guy who looks like he belongs in a biker gang." He snorted. "Looks can be deceiving," she smiled. "They usually are." A small crack opened. He shifted uncomfortably but no longer looked away. "I never asked," she continued. "What were you doing before you landed here?" Renan hesitated. "Trying not to die. Guess I failed." The honesty in his voice wasn't bitter. It was just real, raw. "I got into some stuff," he added. "People I shouldn't have trusted. Places I shouldn't have gone back to." She nodded, not judging, just listening. "I used to play the drums," he said suddenly, as if surprising even himself, "before everything went to hell." Her eyes lit up. "Jazz or rock?" "Bit of both. Started in church, actually. My mom made me go every Sunday. Said it'd keep me out of trouble." "And did it?" He chuckled, but it was short. For a while. The emergency light flickered above them. A dim yellow glow washed over the small space, casting shadows on their tired faces. "Do you still talk to her?" "Your mom?" Elvira asked. He looked away. "She passed last year, cancer." She placed a hand gently on the floor, not reaching for him, but grounding herself. "I'm sorry." He nodded. "You know," he said, "I thought I was alone in the world after she died. Then I got stabbed by someone I used to call a brother, and here I am, breathing but not really living." Elvira listened, her eyes soft. She saw through him, the tough exterior, the scars, the silence. Beneath it all was a boy who had loved music and lost his mother, a boy who had been swallowed by the city and spat back out. "You're still here," she said. "That counts. For something." He looked at her, and for the first time there was no sarcasm in his voice. "Why are you talking to me like I matter?" She tilted her head. "Because you do." Renan blinked. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came. The air shifted again. Time passed differently inside the elevator. There were no clocks, no duties, no noise from the outside world. Just breaths, glances, stories shared in pieces. "I had a son," Elvira said quietly. Renan turned to her. "His name was Daniel. He died when he was 17. Motorcycle accident. He wasn't wearing a helmet. I told him to always wear one." Long pause. "I tried to save him. I was on duty when they brought him in. I performed CPR with my own hands, but he was already gone." Renan's eyes widened. "God, I never blamed the driver," she continued. "I blamed myself for years. I thought if I'd been stricter, more present, more something, he'd still be here." She looked up at the flickering light. "But grief changes you. It hardens parts of you and softens others. It made me a better nurse, but a lonelier person." The elevator was silent again, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was reverent, respectful. "I guess we both lost someone," Renan finally said. "We all lose someone," she answered. "But what we do with that loss, that's what defines us." The hum of the emergency system buzzed faintly above. Renan ran a hand through his hair. "You're not what I expected." "Neither are you," he smiled slightly. From the hallway outside, a distant noise echoed, a technician's voice, muffled. Then, "Is anyone inside?" Elvira stood and knocked hard on the door. "Yes, 2 people. We're okay. Hold tight, we'll get it open." As footsteps rushed away to gather tools, Renan looked up at her. "You know, you're the first person who's talked to me like I'm not broken." She crouched beside him. "That's because I see you. Not the ink, not the record, not the anger, just you." When the elevator doors finally opened, light poured in. Bright, blinding and almost cruel after the dim calm of the small metal box. People in uniforms rushed in. Questions, flashlights, a stretcher. Renan waved them off. "I can walk." Elvira stepped out after him. For a second their hands brushed. He looked back. "Hey, when do you retire?" "In 3 days. Maybe I'll see you before then." She nodded. "I hope you do." They walked in opposite Directions, two lives that had collided in darkness, but the silence they shared would echo louder than any sound. Chapter 2. The Light She Left Behind. The next 2 days passed in a strange fog for Renard. Back in his hospital bed, the walls didn't feel quite as suffocating. The beeping machines no longer grated on his nerves. He still didn't talk to the other nurses, but something inside him had shifted. A tiny crack had opened, and through it light was slowly starting to seep in. He found himself waiting for the sound of Elvira's shoes in the hallway. The way they clicked confidently, the gentle rhythm like a metronome. But she never came. On the third morning, he asked a nurse casually, "Hey, the older lady who got stuck in the elevator with me, Elvira. She working today?" The nurse looked up, confused, then hesitated. "Oh, didn't you hear?" Renard frowned. "Hear what?" "She passed away last night." The world stopped. "What?" "She had a heart condition. No one really knew. She kept it quiet. Collapsed at home. They said it was peaceful, quick." Renan stared at the wall, the words punching a hole through his chest. Her retirement party was supposed to be today. The nurse offered a weak smile and walked away. Renan didn't move. He couldn't. The room was suddenly colder, emptier. He thought of her soft voice, the way she sat cross-legged on the elevator floor, like they were in a coffee shop, not a death trap. He remembered her eyes when she spoke of her son, her hand brushing the metal beside him, grounding herself, grounding him. Dead. Just like that. It felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. That afternoon, he got out of bed for the first time since his surgery and walked slowly down to the staff lounge. A nurse tried to stop him, but he kept going. There, he saw the small table with a cake, now untouched. A single banner that read, "Happy Retirement, Elvira," hung sadly above a couch. No one had taken it down yet. Beside the cake sat a framed photo, Elvira much younger, smiling with the same quiet strength, arms around a young boy. Daniel. Renan stared at the photo for a long time, then sat down. The head nurse approached him gently. "You were with her in the elevator, right?" He nodded. "She mentioned you earlier that day. Said she met someone who reminded her that her work still mattered." Renan swallowed hard. His chest tightened. "I didn't do anything." "You listened," the nurse said. That was enough. Later that night, Renan couldn't sleep. He asked for paper and a pen. He wrote. He wrote about the elevator, the silence, the stories they shared, how she made him feel seen, how for the first time in years he felt like someone believed he could be more than the worst things he'd ever done. When he was discharged a week later, he carried that letter in his jacket pocket. He didn't go back to the streets. Instead, he enrolled in a volunteer program at the hospital, transporting patients, delivering meals, pushing wheelchairs. Small things, but honest things. He even signed up for music therapy classes, picking up the drums again for the first time since his mother died. And every year, on the date the elevator stopped, he lit a candle outside the hospital and left it, burning through the night. The note he wrote never got mailed, of course, but it lived in his drawer. The last line read, "You saved my life in that elevator, Elvira. Not because you stopped me from dying, but because you made me want to live." Reflection. Sometimes the people who change us forever don't stay in our lives long. Sometimes they arrive in the darkest moments, quiet, unannounced, and leave behind light that never fades. Elvira didn't live to see the impact she had, but in the silent heart of someone the world had nearly given up on, she left a spark that kept burning. Because true connection, even if brief, can echo louder than a lifetime of noise. Enjoyed this story? Then subscribe to the Golden Words channel so you won't miss any others. Every day, we bring you touching and emotional stories. Leave a comment with the city and country you're listening from. Let's spread these stories worldwide.